Mine works.
So we'll call the November 17th meeting of the Policy Management Committee to order. First order of business is introductions. I'm Phil Kaufman, Chair of the Committee.
Pat O'Neill. Rebecca Smondrowski.
Joanne Causey, Recorder.
Suzanne King, staff in the Board of Education Office.
Stephanie Williams, Director of Policy Records and Reporting.
Maureen McNamara, Policy Records and Recording.
Aranza Labad, Executive Director, Office of School Support and Improvement.
Josh Sivan, General Counsel.
Donna Hollingshead, Associate Superintendent of School Administration.
Good afternoon. Eric Gersey, Student Member of the Board.
So our first item is the informational summary. Any comments, concerns? So we'll enter that into the record. So we're up to update on policy J&A. Ms. Williams?
Yes, good afternoon. We're going to have part of our ongoing monitoring process for curricular expenses. We routinely report to the board the status of curricular fees for the current school year. I thought that since this has been an ongoing review of the policy, that I would just sort of refresh our collective recollections on what brought us here about curricular fees. So I'll give you a brief background. In the fall of 2008, in response to concerns within the community and among a number of board members regarding the implementation of policy J&A curricular expenses for students, the board and the superintendent embarked upon a review of MCPS practices regarding the collection of curricular fees. The review highlighted the fact that MCPS simply would not be able to offer a number of courses that are available to students today, particularly in the areas of the arts and the trades. However, this, of course, needed to be balanced with the requirements of the Maryland law. So, as part of this review, MCPS and the board sought the advice of counsel on the question of charging fees. And as part of the advice that we received from counsel at that time, we are 6 categories of items were identified in state law that must be provided free of cost for use in the public schools and in sufficient quantities for the different grades within the public schools. And those categories include textbooks, supplementary readers, materials of instruction, visual and auditory aids, stationery, and school supplies. So council further worked with the board and superintendent and staff to develop a set of definitions for the 6 categories, and also supported staff in developing guidelines for schools regarding the permissible course-related fees. Staff then worked with schools to identify fees that were being charged at the time, and to sort of sort through which were appropriate and which were not. As a result of this effort, staff's review applying the new definitions as well as the guidelines, fees were reduced significantly, both in number as well as in dollar value of those that were charged. Generally, allowable course-related fees are limited to food consumed by the student as part of the course, materials that become a product that belongs to the student, such as a student art project, and personal items that become the student's property, such as technology uniforms. So, as a result of all of this, the number, I already said that the number and in some cases the amount of the fees were reduced significantly. The superintendent made some realignments within the budget to support the implementation of the new guidelines, and as well the fee waiver process was updated to ensure that any families that were unable to meet the costs that were appropriately applied were not prevented from participating in any course. Staff put in place training, communication plans, implementation strategies, as well as plans for monitoring. So today, Ms. Aranza Labat, she's the Executive Director within the Office of School Support and Improvement. She's going to provide an update on course-related fees as it relates to the 2015-16 school year.
That's okay. Thank you, Ms. Williams. So I believe that the board already has in their possession a copy of the approved fees for middle and high school. And as we review the process, keeping in mind, as Ms. Williams stated, we provide guidelines. So every year, schools receive a memo that has all of the guidelines in accordance with the policy around what are allowable or permissible fees. There are also within those guidelines approved ranges, and schools will submit on an annual basis their fee requests for those approved courses. Part of that process also allows schools, if they are implementing a new course, to go through that process with the curriculum supervisors for identifying the content and whatever extra fees may be deemed necessary, and those established guidelines around those approved fees. So the documents you have in front of you are the ones that were submitted for approval, and the document also outlines where fees were approved, and in general, if it's within that approved fee range, it is approved. If we receive a fee request that seems unreasonable, then our office, the Office of School Support and Improvement, works closely with the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Programs and those curriculum supervisors to work with the school to identify an appropriate fee for those courses.
Can I ask a question? So if it reads no fee, then that means, and it's highlighted as new, does that mean that they just decided that? Doesn't mean it wasn't approved. It just means that they are not requesting a fee for that course.
If it says no fee, that means the school has requested no fee for the course.
Okay.
Any other?
And can you just explain what food in class, eaten in class means?
So a food item in class, it may be, and I can speak as a parent as well, it may be within that class course, maybe a science class, an art class. They're working with something that's an edible product. It's a consumable. And so the fee will directly supply that food item that the child is. So it's a consumable that they will eat in class.
Okay. I'm assuming for $15 there'd be multiple
Activities that are part of the curriculum.
Okay, and what's FACS?
FA's Family and Family and Consumer Science. My day, home ec.
Okay. Excellent.
Jersey.
Is there an automatic waiver assessed to certain students?
It's a school-based decision, but yes, all schools have processes in place to allow for that waiver, and simply a student or family has to request that. We don't deny students access to the curriculum because of a fee. So, but yes, principals have processes in place, and a lot of times it's supported by PTA as well, but they do have a process in place in order to support students who may not be able to pay the fee.
So I'm just going to speak as a parent on this. At back to school night, the last 2 years in a row, I can't really recall honestly if my children took any courses that required a fee before that, but they did at back to school night when they discussed the curriculum and what they would be doing. I will say I felt very good about the fact that every teacher mentioned that in a course that did contain a fee, that if you couldn't pay the fee, that you could apply for a waiver and get full scholarship or partial scholarship, depending on what you requested. So just wanted to let Eric know that.
So how does it happen at some schools, some courses may not charge a fee, and another identical course at another school, a fee is charged? What's the explanation for that?
That's a very good question, and it's one that, as the Office of School Support and Improvement and Curriculum Instructional Programs are looking at that, we're actually engaged in a process to help streamline our courses. But depending upon the activities, we have a range of activities within the curriculum. Schools sometimes make decisions, they may choose to do option A, or they may choose to do option B and C, and that would, in fact, impact how many activities, what that cost may be. And so we're working with the schools to help minimize that impact on homes and families, certainly within that allowable range, but to standardize that to reduce some of that disparity that we do see.
So are we publishing the fees when students sign up for classes so that they know in advance, or parents know in advance, that there is a fee charged?
Yes, over the last 2 years, we've worked on that timeline process, and we've actually updated it so that fees are submitted in advance of the publication of the registration, the bulletin, the course bulletin, so that when students register for their courses in the spring or the early winter, then they have the fees that are associated with that. We do sometimes have instances where a new course will develop, because we're asking schools to identify what their courses are for the following year earlier. And over the course of the year, they may see a need or an interest that generates a new course. So occasionally there are courses that were not in the course bulletin that are offered later than the publication, but when they are registering for the courses, we're making every effort that they have all of the information available to them.
I'm looking at some of the fees at Edison. I'm not questioning whether or
Right.
not they're legal or not, but I mean, they seem to be much higher than fees in other places. I mean, do we ever look at to see whether or not these fees are, given the student population, whether or not these fees are excessive?
We do. And that's part of that oversight that the curriculum office provides, because they're the ones most closely connected to the curriculum. But keep in mind that when we're talking about Edison, we're talking about some very specialized courses. And so those fees are associated if it's cosmetology, or if it's in their food track and chef, culinary. I was trying to think of the word, culinary track. Then those are very specialized items. And so therefore they're all consumable, and they are for the students. They take those with them.
But given, I mean, we're trying to get kids to attend Edison, and my question is whether or not some students might be turned off by even enrolling there if they see, if I have to pay a $335 fee for a cosmetology kit, whether or not a student might say, I'm not going to attend Edison. I mean, I guess that would be my concern.
If we look at the enrollment, we have very strong enrollment, and that's why schools and staff work closely with those students. And again, we do have that waiver process in place, but we want to attend to the interest of our students, and so that is part of that school support around students to make sure that we're making their interests at the forefront rather than the financial obligation.
And of course, I won't say how I know this, but if you have forgotten to pay your fee, you do get a letter that reads that you will not get credit for the class, or you will not progress and get your report card until it's paid. If they could include the waiver application with those letters, I think that because some people don't pay, not realizing that there is that process, and they and they're too embarrassed, whatever. But so, just as a suggestion more than a question, just putting that out there.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay. Seeing no other questions? Thank you very much. Oh.
So I have a question about the course fees. So years ago, I had mentioned something about this because I didn't really support the idea of that we were charging when we first started establishing online courses, that we were charging for that. And I understand the explanation to me was that because it's only for optional courses, is that correct? Things that they don't have to take them online. They could take in class.
Right.
So I understand that, and I appreciate that. But is there waiver applications and things like that for those courses as well?
I'd have to get back to you to confirm that. I did speak briefly with Dr. Lane around online courses, and also those courses that are offered beyond the school day, similar to online courses. And they are covered in summer school and other optional courses. having the waiver in place of that, students and families are choosing that as an option. Those courses are available to them during their instructional day. And so having that option for an online course or taking a course in the evenings after school is, the student is wanting to take another course or another elective during their school day.
Which I understand that,
Right.
and like I said, I accept that, except that there are some students who are trying to maybe specialize in a specific field, or they have a very strong extracurricular, like, music or something, and particularly with the technology piece being required, it limits their ability to take other classes of interest. So I guess my fear is that with that then if you can't afford it, so it's fine if you want to take extra band instruction, if you can afford to take Foundations of Tech online, but if you can't, then you're in a position where you have to choose. So I think that we need to seriously look at whether or not we can offer a waiver option for the online.
I'm sorry.
No.
And I'm looking back at the email correspondence from Dr. Lang, and he did indicate that there is tuition assistance available for qualifying students. I'm not sure what the guidelines are, but that's certainly information that we can provide.
So I have a question about the online courses because, conceivably, we have a 7-period everywhere, a 7-period high school day, so that is universally offered to everybody, and there's a teacher for each period with the kids. An online course is like extending your school day, and it does require a teacher to monitor, if you do online technology or health. So it's the equivalent of paying overtime to staff to do it. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so when you look at the fees for those courses, they are high in comparison to the fees of other courses that, the same course taken during the school day. And that is because part of that is to pay for the teacher's salary, because it does require a staff member to monitor and deliver that instruction.
And are those fees similar to what we're charging if you went to summer school? Both my kids took
Yes.
health in summer school.
That is correct.
And I appreciate that clarification. It just seemed very high when I was looking, and like I said, if I couldn't afford to do that, then that limits some people. And so, like I said, if we can provide opportunities to let parents know that there are application for waivers or assistance, financial assistance.
And I believe that is included in the information when you submit your registration for the courses.
Okay.
Similarly to summer school registration, in the booklet or on the website where you're accessing the information, there is a statement that references the fact that tuition support is available for qualifying students. I'm just not aware of the specific guidelines, but it is a practice.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about when we mandate that a student's failed or has
I asked about that before, too.
has failed to bear credit in their course, so they either have to go to high school plus or they're doing a summer school course, and it's really not optional at that point. How would we provide tuition assistance in a case like that?
I think I'm speaking and I'm thinking I will like to come back with the answer to that to give a more precise response.
Yeah, I would just like to see us continue to be proactive in this is the way that we can provide financial assistance to you, not fill out this financial form and bring it back to us so that we can.
I agree. I think
something
we talked about that a couple years ago, but I strongly agree. So if we could do that, that'd be great.
Well, Ms. Williams, my recollection is several years ago, the State Board of Education, I remember, was collecting information from all the LEAs on fees. I don't recall that they ever came back and said that our fee structures were in any way questionable.
I don't have information that they did. That's something we could research further if you have a question, but I don't have any indication that they did.
Okay.
I haven't
Okay.
seen anything to that regard.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thanks very much. Okay, moving on. We are for an update on our tree study.